She paid for first class, but they denied her even a meal. The crew laughed at her. But when the plane landed, they discovered she was the CEO who owned their fate. The airport lights sparkled that evening as travelers hurried across the marble floors. Each person carried their own world of stories, but one woman stood out with unmatched confidence. Dr. Maya Johnson, a black woman, a self-made CEO, respected across nations. She had turned her small startup into a global tech empire. She had signed deals worth billions. She had changed lives, yet beneath all the power, she carried a quiet grace. She treated janitors, drivers, and assistants with the same respect she gave to kings. She boarded the international flight heading from New York to London, a first-class ticket in her hand. The summit in London awaited her, and the world waited to hear her keynote. But from the very first step onto the plane, Maya felt the weight of whispers. A few flight attendants exchanged smirks. Their smiles were thin and cold. Their eyes scanned her outfit and skin, not with admiration, but with judgment. Maya kept her calm. She always did. She took her seat in the luxurious cabin. The leather shined, the champagne glasses sparkled. Other passengers were offered drinks with warm greetings. But when the attendant reached Maya, she barely received a nod. No water, no smile, only silence. It was not the treatment of first class. It was the treatment of invisibility. Soon the dinner service began. Silver trays rolled down the aisle. Men in suits and women in diamond were served with laughter. The aromas of roasted chicken and fresh bread filled the air. When the tray reached Maya, she looked up, expecting the same. But the attendant leaned down, her voice sharp. "Sorry, ma'am, your meal has been given away. We do not have another one for you." Maya blinked once, twice. She looked around. Every other passenger had been served, even those who boarded last. Yet her plate was empty. She asked softly, "Is there an alternative? Something simple, perhaps a salad?" A roll. The attendant crossed her arms. "You will have to wait until economy service finishes. If anything is left, we will see." The nearby passengers raised their brows. Some hid their smiles. Others whispered, "Poor woman, maybe she should not be here." Maya heard it all. She sat in silence, her dignity intact. But her heart burned. She had paid for first class. She had earned her place. She had worked harder than anyone in that cabin. Yet she was being treated as if she did not belong. The humiliation grew. The attendants giggled as they passed her row. One muttered loud enough to hear, "Some people think money can buy class." Another added, "Maybe she should have stayed in coach." Maya sat upright, her eyes fierce. She did not argue. She did not raise her voice. She had learned long ago that silence can be louder than words. She reached for her pen and began writing notes in her leather book. Calm on the outside, but inside, she was already planning. This was no ordinary mistake. This was no accident. This was arrogance fueled by prejudice. And they had chosen the wrong woman to belittle. For Maya Johnson was not just any passenger. She was not only a customer. She was a woman of power. And when the plane touched down, they would discover exactly who she was. The plane soared above the ocean. Clouds stretched endlessly outside the wide windows. Passengers in first class leaned back, sipping champagne, enjoying fine desserts. The clinking of cutlery filled the air. Soft laughter rose like music. But one seat remained untouched. Maya sat upright, her tray still empty. Her stomach growled faintly, but her spirit was sharper than hunger. The attendants passed by, ignoring her gaze. When she raised her hand, they turned away. One muttered, "She is persistent." Another replied with a sneer, "She will learn this is not her place." Their words fell like daggers, but Maya remained calm. Her pen moved steadily across her notebook. Every line was a record, every detail etched down the time, the words, the actions, the looks. She documented everything because Maya knew power was not in shouting. Power was in evidence. Hours passed. The flight grew quieter. Some passengers slept under silk blankets. Others watched glowing screens. When the second service arrived, Maya hoped for fairness. But once again, trays were laid down, desserts passed, and still her seat was skipped, as if she were invisible, as if she were not human. She looked around. The man across from her whispered to his wife, "She should be grateful to be here. She does not look like first class." The woman nodded. "You can buy a ticket, but you cannot buy respect." Maya heard it all. She closed her eyes and let the words sink into her resolve. The humiliation was deep, but Maya knew storms do not last forever. She whispered to herself softly, "My mother taught me to fight with dignity. My father taught me that silence can roar louder than violence. Tonight, I will endure tomorrow. I will speak. The attendants returned one last time before landing with smiles too bright, asking passengers, "Did you enjoy your service? We hope you fly with us again." Each seat responded with praise, but when they reached Maya, they did not stop. They walked by, without a glance, not a word, not a smile, not even acknowledgement. Maya sat taller. She was not a victim. She was a queen, and the throne she carried was her unshakable pride. As the plane began its descent into London, the captain announced, "Thank you for flying with us. We will soon touch down." The attendants buckled in their seats, satisfied with their work. Their laughter whispered once again in the cabin. They thought the flight was finished. They thought their mockery was sealed as victory. But they had no idea who sat in seat 2. They had no idea that the woman they had denied a meal was not just any traveler. She was a CEO with global influence, a leader whose name echoed in governments and corporations alike. They had mocked the wrong passenger. The wheels touched the runway. The cabin shook with gentle force. Applause filled the air. But within Maya's heart, a storm raged. Her silence was ending. Her power was awakening. And as the plane slowed to a halt, she whispered to herself softly, but firmly, "The game is over." The plane slowed down as the wheels screeched against the runway. The voices of the attendants filled the cabin with scripted cheer. "Welcome to London. Thank you for flying with us. We hope you had a pleasant journey." Passengers gathered their belongings, straightening suits, fastening watches, reapplying lipstick. The air smelled of perfume and victory, but Maya sat still, her notebook closed, resting in her lap. Her silence was heavy and unbroken. The attendants avoided her eyes. They thought it was over. They thought their cruelty had gone unchallenged. Their laughter buzzed between them. Quietly, "No one here will remember and no one here will care." But fate had a different plan. As the cabin doors opened, a ground agent entered with a wide smile. "Dr. Johnson, welcome to London. The car is waiting for you outside." The agent bowed respectfully. The room froze. The attendants exchanged quick glances. Their laughter stopped instantly. Their faces stiffened. "Dr. Johnson," the name rang through the cabin. Passengers looked at her again, not as a stranger, but as a figure they had seen on magazine covers, a leader, a billionaire, a woman whose influence shaped industries. The same woman they had whispered against, the same woman they had mocked for not belonging. She rose gracefully, smoothing her jacket. Her presence filled the room with power that needed no words. The chief attendant stepped forward, forcing a smile. "We hope your flight was comfortable, ma'am." Maya turned her gaze sharp yet calm. She spoke slowly, so every word would strike. "This flight was not comfortable. This flight was humiliation disguised as service. You denied me the basic dignity I paid for. You denied me food, water, and respect. You mocked me. You whispered against me. You treated me as if I did not belong, and for that, I will not remain silent." The cabin hushed completely. Even the engines outside seemed quieter. Maya stepped forward, her heels firm against the carpet. She held up her notebook, every word recorded, every insult documented. "I have written everything, names, times, words. I am not just a passenger. I am the CEO of Johnson Global Enterprises. I sit on the boards of international alliances. I work with governments and world leaders. And tonight you revealed yourselves not only as unprofessional, but as cruel." Gasps filled the room. Some passengers lowered their heads, ashamed of their own whispers. Others looked at Maya with newfound respect. One elderly man stood clapping, softly whispering, "Bravo." The lead attendant stammered, "Ma'am, we apologize. It was a misunderstanding. Please understand." Maya raised her hand, silencing her apologies. "Do not erase choices. Every act you made was deliberate. Every laugh, every denial, every insult was chosen, and choices carry consequences." She turned to the ground agent. "Call the airline director. Immediately tell them I want the full crew waiting outside this cabin now." The agent nodded swiftly, dialing his phone. The attendants paled. Their smiles vanished. Their arrogance melted under the fire of truth. Maya gathered her bag and stood tall. She looked at every passenger in first class. "Let this be remembered, not because I was denied a meal, but because respect is not optional. Respect is a right, and those who strip it away will face the weight of justice." The cabin door opened wider. Airport officials and airline executives entered, their faces nervous and pale. They looked at Maya with deep bows. "Dr. Johnson, we were not informed of your presence. Please forgive any shortcomings." Maya raised her chin. "No forgiveness today. Today, there will be accountability." And the attendants who once laughed now stood trembling, knowing the storm had finally arrived. The jet bridge connected, and the cabin filled with officials. The passengers in first class leaned forward, eager to see what would happen. The once proud flight attendants now stood in a shaky line. Their crisp uniforms looked wrinkled under the weight of shame. Their eyes darted from one another to Maya, as if searching for an escape, but there was none. Maya stood tall, her presence sharper than any uniform, sharper than any title. She looked each of them in the eye and spoke slowly, so the weight of her voice sank into every corner of the cabin. This was not about food. This was not about service. This was about dignity. You looked at me and decided I did not deserve the same respect you gave to others. You whispered, you laughed, you thought no one would ever hear or care, but I heard, and now the world will care. She turned to the airline executives standing near the door. These attendants are the face of your company, and tonight that face was arrogance, cruelty, and disrespect. I cannot and will not allow such people to represent the skies. They have made it clear that their values do not match the values of any business that serves humanity. The lead attendant stepped forward, her voice shook. Ma'am, please, we were only following procedures. We did not mean to offend. Maya's eyes burned with steady fire. You did not mean to offend, and yet every action was designed to humiliate. You refused me a meal. You ignored my requests. You whispered insults loud enough for others to hear. That is not procedure, that is choice, and your choice ends here. The executives nodded nervously. They knew her reputation. They knew one word from her could damage the airline beyond repair. Maya spoke again, clearly. For the record, I demand this crew be relieved of duty immediately. They are not fit to serve passengers at any level, not first class, not economy, not at all. The passengers murmured, some applauded, others recorded with their phones. The story was already spilling into the world live, through whispers, through cameras, through text. The attendants shrank smaller with every second. One young attendant at the end of the line finally broke. She stepped forward, tears in her eyes. I did not join in. I wanted to help you, but I was too afraid. I did not have courage to speak up. Maya studied her for a long moment. Then she nodded quietly. You may step aside. Fear is weakness, but silence can be broken. You still have a chance to learn. The girl stepped back, relief washing over her face. But the others remained. Maya turned to them one last time. You mocked me, thinking I was powerless. But you were wrong tonight. You lose not only your jobs, but your mask tonight. The world will see you as you are, and the world will not forget. The executives raised their voices clearly. For violation of conduct, for unprofessional behavior, and for discriminatory service, you are hereby dismissed, effective immediately. The attendants gasped, some cried, others stood frozen, as if struck, their careers ended before their eyes. Maya gathered her bag and walked past them, not with anger, but with the power of justice. The passengers clapped louder. Now some stood in respect. Her stride was strong, steady, unstoppable. She had entered this plane invisible, but she was leaving as a storm. And as she stepped out into the terminal, cameras flashed, journalists swarmed. Word had spread already. The Black CO, denied a meal in first class, had turned the sky upside down. But Maya was not finished yet. Her lesson had only begun. The terminal was alive with flashing lights. Cameras pointed toward Maya. Journalists shouted questions from every direction, their microphones stretched like eager hands. Passengers who had witnessed the flight rushed forward, sharing what they saw, some still shaken by the arrogance of the crew, some inspired by Maya's unbreakable stance. The story was already spreading across the world faster than the plane had crossed the ocean. Maya stopped at the center of the terminal. Her heels clicked against the marble floor. Her calm presence demanded silence, and silence came even among the chaos. She raised her head, her voice clear, steady, and unshakable. Tonight, you have all seen a truth that cannot be hidden. This was never about food. This was about respect. It was about dignity, denied to me not because of service shortage, but because of prejudice. The journalists leaned closer. Camera zoomed, and Maya continued. They looked at me and decided I was less. They whispered and laughed. They tried to remind me of a place they believed I belonged. But I tell you this, I do not need their approval to belong. I belong wherever I walk, because I earn my place with sweat, work, and sacrifice. And so do all of you who fight every day for respect. The crowd erupted in applause. Some clapped, others shouted her name. A woman in the back whispered loudly, "She speaks for all of us." Maya's words carried across the terminal like thunder. She raised her notebook, showing the pages, every insult, every denial, every action documented. This is proof of what happened on this flight, and it will be used not just to punish but to change. An airline executive approached, bowing nervously. Dr. Johnson, we deeply regret this incident. We promise an internal review. Maya looked directly into his eyes. Change is not a promise, change is action. I want to see new training programs. I want policies rewritten. I want every crew member reminded that respect is not a privilege, it is a duty. The executive nodded, trembling. It will be done, ma'am. It will be done. Maya turned away, not waiting for his excuses. The crowd followed her with their eyes, some filming, some crying, some simply staring in awe. At the exit, she paused one last time, turning back to face the hall of cameras, her voice rising above the noise. Tonight, they tried to deny me a meal, but what they truly denied was their own humanity. They chose arrogance over kindness. They chose mockery over service. And now, they have lost everything. Let this story be a warning, not just to one airline, but to the world. No matter how high you fly, no matter how rich or powerful you believe yourself to be, if you forget the dignity of another, you will fall. Her words echoed like prophecy. The crowd erupted louder than ever, people chanting her name, people clapping until their palms ached. She walked through the flash of cameras into the night air, where her car waited. Her driver opened the door, bowing with respect. She entered with grace, leaving behind a storm she had conquered. The news exploded across headlines. Black CEO denied meal, fires entire crew after landing. Social media, filled with her quotes, her calm strength, became inspiration for millions. Students, workers, leaders all shared her story. She was no longer just Maya Johnson, CEO. She was a symbol of dignity and power, a reminder that silence can roar louder than any voice, and that respect is not optional but eternal. And somewhere far away, the attendants, who had once laughed, now sat in silence, knowing they had mocked the wrong woman. They had underestimated her. They had thought she was powerless, but they were wrong. She was power. Maya leaned back in her car, watching the lights of London pass by. She smiled faintly, not in victory, but in peace, because tonight she had done more than defend herself. She had defended every person who had ever been silent. She had spoken for every voice denied. She whispered softly to herself, my mother was right. Silence is the loudest roar. The car drove into the night, carrying with it not just a CEO, but a legacy that would be remembered every time a flight took off, every time a worker served a passenger, every time respect was chosen over arrogance. And the world would never forget.